please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with Todd Zola of RotoWire and Masters Ball. Opening day has come and gone, Todd, at least for most teams.
Not me. Yeah. I still have opening day.
Yeah, your Red Sox got rained out. Nice. Well, of course, we will be doing the two-step thing for the first time. I haven't looked ahead, but I know generally we've talked about how there'll probably be fewer two-start options, at least fewer appealing two-start options. And, of course, Mark Melancon got saves. Did I dream that Wade Davis got a save, or was I hallucinating? Or I think he actually did get the save, yes.
Yeah,
he relieved Greg Holland.
Yep, he did. I don't know. I mean, there were some interesting save maneuvers. I mean, Gregory Soto got the save, but he also gave up a couple of runs. So, unfortunately, he had a 3-run lead, so giving up a 2-run homer didn't hurt. At least didn't hurt the save category. It may have hurt the whip and the ERA category. But, yeah, the save scenario, Richard Rodriguez, about all the talk about Kyle Crick, he came in and he, mowed them down. What else? Was there any other? I can't recall any sort of surprises. We're still waiting on Atlanta. We're still waiting on Boston. A couple of the bigger scenarios as far as what's going on.
Yeah, I just was surprised, especially because I was buying in on that Emilio Pagan hype, and I've learned this lesson many times, but it's just another painful lesson. And maybe take what the beat writers are saying with a little bit of a grain of salt. I respect the work they do, but if it's not coming from the mouth of the manager, it's hard to take those inferences as fact and take them to the bank, because
actually I find it pretty easy. To be honest, I find it pretty easy to do that.
Well, I mean, from the beat writers, like
I just, yeah. I don't. And
I
ignore it.
I know that they're close to the team, but for me, I really blew it a couple of years ago with like John Gant or whoever that was. It ended up being Carlos Martinez, but sometimes I've taken the beat writers at their word a little bit, and they do a great job again. But if it's not coming from the manager's mouth, they're the one who ultimately gets to say it, who goes out to close games. So,
well, Pagan was from the manager's mouth, wasn't it?
I think it was more so like people in the organization feel he could get the majority of the saves.
Okay. I thought, yeah.
It was more open-ended than I probably shouldn't have put as much stock into that, because it made too much sense to bring in a guy like Melancon and kind of box him into the ninth, and then you're flexible with your actually better arms. A good chance to close games. That was from Kevin Acey. Jay Stingler's expressed a preference for dedicated ninth inning arm rather than a committee, but it seems like all of this was mostly he has been the name most often mentioned by people within the organization. So I spent big on Pagan last weekend in FAAB, and early returns not looking good. I did right before I fell asleep last night. I saw Rafael Montero blow a save on the first pitch he threw. It seemed like first batter he faced. Alex Dickerson, your guy, Alex Dickerson. Yeah. Not a great night for my closers on opening day, but I love baseball. It was a lot of fun to watch. Vladdy just cracking like a 115-mile-per-hour single off Cole was awesome too.
And, well, here you go, Clay. I actually heard this said on the air yesterday by a professional baseball announcer. There's still a lot of season left to be played. Gosh.
That is insane. Yeah, I got to tell you, the early victory laps, and I try to just tune them out, and I really don't care, actually. But it's like, and I hate to be that, act like you've been there before guy, but anybody who says, is taking a lap now really probably has never been there at the end. But it's it's just kind of funny how things work. I wish the best for the Reds. I'm going to be watching them win or lose, but just the kind of an embarrassing ordeal that unfolded right from the start yesterday. You got such a great pitcher, and you just can't support him with a real defense behind him. Before we get into two-start pitchers, Todd, I wanted to run through a few of the pickups from the Stake League, which you are not in, but I just thought I'd throw these these dollar figures out, give a little forecast. And we do have a new Thursday FAAB article, by the way, Jason Shabilsky, previewing the weekend with a little forecast, and that's up on the homepage right now. I was the big spender on Kyle Isabel. I can't believe you snuck him through for a buck in an AL only.
That's
wild.
DVR was in this league. Bernie Pleskov is in this league. And I honestly, I wasn't trying to get him for a buck. I was actually trying to fill an outfield spot, get a little money, and so I could play the end game the way I wanted to. I was shocked. I ended up leaving like $20, and the next one, my next nomination was Jake Bowers, and again it went for $1. And you guys are messing with me, aren't you? I mean, it's an AL only. These are 2 starters. They're not great, right? But they're 2 starters. So I had like $20, $25 at the end because you gave me $2. I paid $2 for $15 or $16 worth of players. I ended up paying like $23 for Francisco Mejia because he was the best catcher on the board, and someone else had a ton of money. Okay. So everybody's laughing. Laugh away. I'm laughing that you let me get Kyle Isabel for a buck.
Yeah.
So.
That is egregious. I might have to text DVR and say, how did you let that happen? Not that Kyle Isabel is necessarily going to be the star, but he had 3 hits in his debut, some speed, some power, and they seem impressed with this kid. So I think he's going to get a leash, yeah.
And it's a keeper league. It's a keeper league, too. And if he went as a minor leaguer, he would have been 7. That's the rule.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean.
That's pretty nice. Plus, 3 hits, 2 RBI. Has he already earned that buck with 1 day of game?
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's pretty amazing.
And you know what? It's a bunch of good players, and I'm somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it shocked me. I had to go back and look to make sure something didn't happen. Everybody has it. It was in the range we expected players to go for $5, $6, $7, $8. It wasn't in the dollar. It wasn't really dollar days yet, but it was just kind of. And they let me get. It's a league that it has. Incorporates holds and everything else, and they let me get my buddy Adam Alvino for like 3, 4, 5. So I got what I expected to pay. Well, I didn't expect to get a couple of these guys. What I figured would be about $20 worth of players. I got for like 7. So yeah,
that's great job, well done. I spent $17 out of my $100 budget on Isabel. This is a 16-team mixer, so it gets pretty deep. And I'd actually went pretty thin on my outfield in the draft, and I'd had Taylor Trammell in there. And I just thought, Trammell has had a good spring, but there's some swing and miss there, and I just felt it opened me up to too much downside, especially when all I have to do is finish top half in this league. I just didn't want Taylor Trammell, hurting my average too much. So I thought Isabel was a little safer than Taylor Trammell.
Yeah, and Seattle's got several options in case Trammell does struggle.
Mm-hmm. I like what Isabel can bring to the table though, with the speed, and they seem like they'll probably run a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot of pro experience before getting the call, but again, there was that full year of development that we just don't have any real way to gauge. But and then another guy I wanted to mention, and this guy we'll probably be talking about, I assume, if he's still lined up for 2. But Daniel Ponce de Leon, want to thank you for that tweet because I ended up taking a flyer in my solo main event and really just looking ahead to this week. So he went for only a buck. Now in this league that he doesn't get a 2-start period because we have like Friday through Thursday lineup periods here. But I do think Ponce de Leon with the matchups upcoming is a decent pickup this weekend.
Right. One of the things I've talked about on the podcast and in general is if you're going to stream, if part of your strategy is streaming, why not draft your first set of streamers?
Yep.
Don't look at the rankings. You may not use the guy. Draft your first set of streamers. And if the idea is if they're fungible, the problem then is they have a good first week and you're hesitant to drop them. But to me, De Leon isn't even a streamer. To me, he's in my lineup until St. Louis's arms get healthy, if they even do.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to pitch, and I like the matchup. So to me, he was a bat. If my 5th starter out of 7, I figure I won't use him all the time, but you use him kind of most of the time. 6 and 7 are my fungible roster spots. He's kind of like my SP5. I may be able to get him as an SP7, right? My 7th starting pitcher. Mm-hmm. But in my plan, he's in there most of the time.
I hear you. Mike Tauchman was picked up in this league. Congrats to all those NFBC players who, with the 1 day period, swapped in Mike Tauchman and those draft champions and got 2 steals. This guy should be a red. I mean, especially with Senzel hurt. Senzel hurt again. They should trade for Mike Tauchman because he needs to play a little bit. That really, since we drafted late in the stake league, not a lot, but actually in Derek Van Riper's Maki league, Hector Neris was still out there. $32 for Neris. I think that's pretty good. Logan Allen, Logan Webb picked up. Julian Merriweather, sneaky. He got the save yesterday. Maybe you didn't. I mean, obviously you wished you didn't pick up Sal Romano, but maybe Jordan Romano isn't going to be the big difference maker that other people thought.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe I'd be tilted for another reason because I spent $417 on a setup man. We'll have to find out. We'll see.
It could have been squandered one way or another. David Bodie, another guy. I just wanted to throw out a few names. Anything else though before, Todd, we move on to our 2-start options?
No. I get a piece coming out in the site a little bit later today. Clay and I were talking before we started. Had a bunch of admin stuff yesterday. Did not get to write the piece. It's my yearly primer for the 2-start. So I know we have one that came out already with the 4 and 11 day week, but for those that are on the site and want to learn a little bit, the sausage is made, as they say. Look for it later on today, early tomorrow. The sort of explanation for the 2 starts on the site.
Awesome. We will look for that, and thank you for the work you did. I know people were clamoring, and some of the CS guys were emailing me like, Todd's weekly pitcher rankings coming, and the popular feature here at the site, and for good reason because they're invaluable. And I look forward to checking those out. Now on this show, what we do is grade on a 1 to 5 scale. So you rank the pitchers for every single week, but what we do is focus on the 2-star pitchers and give them a grade on a 1 to 5 scale based on their matchups, if we'd play them. And it's kind of like a rule. You developed this kind of with DVR, right? Or was it maybe like a Ron Chandler thing even before?
No, it was with DVR. Okay. Ron didn't do everything. He did most of the things. No,
I know he did something similar where he graded
like PQS, pure quality start. Basically, what DVR did, because we both play in way too many leagues like you do, Clay, we figured if we have this pitcher in 5 of our leagues, how many would we start him in? I mean, it's just a way to frame it. So this actually goes 0 to 5 because there are some zeros.
I always forget that. But yeah, 0 is important because we'll probably give out more quickly. Zeros than we give out ones.
Yeah, and it's just a rough idea, and it's all contextual. And I will say too, we're going to be talking 2 starters, but in general, and I talk about this in the piece, is there are just a fewer 2-start pitchers in general. This year is going to be more about the matchups, more about the single start guys with solid matchups than it is about, finding, I need a 2-start pitcher. You may just want to get the best guy with a matchup just because with the extra off days coming into the season and 6-man rotations and bullpen days. And I hate to say this, but it looks like it's going to be the case. Some double headers, right? We're going to have some double headers. There are just, although that may increase the number of 2-start pitchers. So, but it's still not enough to, take away what we're talking about here. Don't just focus on 2 starters. Think about the best single start option. You may want a guy with a good start versus a lesser pitcher with 2. And that's what that's what the table's for. I mean, we're going to talk 2-start pitchers, but that's what the rankings are for. And actually, I should mention this really quickly. I'm going to add in what I call the average reliever. So what I'm going to do is just come up with a league average reliever, and I'm going to rank him. So this is kind of the delineation point where, anything. This is where you should, above this line, use a starter. Below this line, use a reliever. And it depends on the size of your league, right? Because number of players that you start may not even get to that point. But it's just kind of a reference point where you may want to start to think about just putting in a high K reliever instead of a starter.
I like that.
It'll be
because there is that line where you gotta
you
gotta draw that line. You're not going Matt Harvey or
right. No, exactly, exactly. So I figured why not? Let's put that line in there.
I like that. We look forward to that. We will get into it here momentarily, but first a word from Underdog Fantasy. Fantasy baseball is here, and you've got to check out these new best ball leagues on Underdog. Best ball is the ultimate test of your live draft skills since there's no in-season management. That's right, draft your team, and Underdog automatically credits you with your best performing players every week. You don't need to play the waiver wire or worry about trades. It's just the draft. Who doesn't love drafting? In Underdog Best Ball, you can draft as many times as you want because you don't have to do any roster management, saving you loads of time. Underdog's Best Ball leagues are drafting right now, starting at just $3. The season is underway, and Underdog also has daily fantasy and an all-new Pick'em game. Go download the Underdog app now to get in on some best ball before the season starts. It has started, but I got to update this read. Enter promo code RotoWire with your first deposit, and Underdog will honor a money-back guarantee during the first month. Love Underdog or get your money back with promo code RotoWire. Search Underdog in your app store and enter promo code RotoWire. So what we'll do is start at the very top of the 2-star pitcher grid at RotoWire.com. You can, of course, filter by start date, and we'll start at April 5th. Man, I love that we are finally into our first full week. Some heartbreak, but a lot of hope, too, this time of year. Not a ton of hope for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and especially for Luke Weaver heading into Coors. It wasn't pretty for Kershaw yesterday. I'm nervous about Bauer. I didn't even want Trevor Bauer, but I ended up with him in a few leagues. I'm worried about him tonight. Luke Weaver I wouldn't touch, though, in Coors, even with a home matchup against Cincinnati to come later in the week. So I'm going to give him a 1. Or actually, 0.
Yeah, like I said, we're going to learn about zeros right away. So yeah, he's a 0.
I couldn't imagine.
Well, he may not be a 0, but his matchups this week are a 0.
What about Drew Smiley? Now we're looking at Washington, although with Washington up in the air, who knows? But and these are always very tentative. We try our best to, of course, get everything up to date, but we're taking our best guess here. And Drew Smiley at Washington versus Philly. I didn't really get the Drew Smiley love during draft season. I wasn't really on him at all, just given his history. He did have a pretty good run last year, but it was 26 1/3 innings, Todd.
I think it was not so much desperation, but it was just recency bias, people needing innings and name recognition. And I'm kind of with you in that if I were able to get Smiley at a point where it was fungible and he got hurt and I wouldn't be mad about it, fine. You know, that's no problem. Let's see. As far as the matchups go, I was busy taking Alek Manoah, thank you, James Anderson, in a minor league draft that trying to be pushed along before we draft tomorrow. At Washington, well, we don't know. You know, we're still not sure about that one. But but Atlanta, if nothing else, will. Man, I like if it goes to me, that's a 2 or a 3. But we will know by Monday morning, right? I would think. Hopefully. whether that's a series or not.
Yeah, that's a tough one, just given the uncertainty right now. I love Alek Manoah, by the way, and I think there's got to be a path to him starting. You see who the Blue Jays are starting in games 2 and 3? Ross Stripling and then T.J. Zoik.
Yeah,
so
now
their depth is already getting tested.
Yeah, I complained about this on Twitter yesterday because part of not only for the site, as far as 2-star pitchers, etc. For ESPN, I do their daily notes, and on Saturday, the third game of the season, there were 4 to be determined.
Of course, yeah.
You know, the third game of the season, teams already don't know.
Miami, I was watching pretty closely. Because I have like Eliezer and Trevor Rogers in a few leagues. Thankfully, Craig Mish chimed in on Twitter and said it looked like Eliezer on Saturday. But yeah, how do you not, especially with, the sports books opening across the country, how do you not kind of regulate and I guess, I don't know. They do at least release their lineups a few hours ahead of time, but how do you not kind of make teams submit their probables in like 2 or 3 days in advance? Come on.
Right. It's not as if the team can't adjust. But anyway, it's more frustrating than anything. I mean, it's like let the season begins, let's have some fun. And I'm already sending in updates the morning of. I mean, I had the morning for ESPN. I had to send in I sent the note. I can't believe it. There's no changes today. And then a minute later, Boston gets rained out. Oops. Then a few minutes after that, take out Scherzer, take out DeGrom. So fortunately, we didn't suggest any hitters against Scherzer and DeGrom, so we didn't have to add any more batters to the report. But anyway.
So you got Smiley as a 2. That's what you said, 2 or 3. I had a 2, so all right, we'll leave him at 2.
Yeah, that's fine.
Definitely check this weekend. Hopefully, we'll get clarification before Monday. Hopefully by Sunday night, so that you can take that into account when doing your FAAB. Is Inoa really going to get a start for them? Oscar Inoa.
Well, I mean, it's our chart.
Plugged in right now.
We're not speaking out of school, but just to make things work, we need a name in there.
Yeah,
it's the best guess.
It's kind of their long man.
Right. It's a best guess
game for
right. And so just a way to make things work and everything else. So it's a best guess. It's not willy-nilly, but confidence level not very high.
No, they could bring somebody up too, but yeah, it's just kind of tentative right now as far as having somebody in there who's kind of represents a bullpen game for Atlanta.
Right.
Really starting with the heavy hitters here. Jorge Lopez for the Baltimore Orioles against the Yankees. Right? Yeah, this one's got to be a 0. Jorge Lopez. I'm going to, by the way, as I type these, I'm just keeping track so that we can recap all of our 2-star grades at the end.
Let's also remind everybody, too, most teams had an off day, like today or sometime over the weekend. So we're looking at teams' 4th and 5th starters on Monday.
Yep.
So we're being wise here, whatever. They will get better once it flips around and the 1, 2s, and 3s begin on Monday and Tuesday. It's just the way the schedule works out. We're looking at a lot of 4s and 5s right now.
Absolutely. And Nick Pivetta, he's a guy I'm going to have to make a call on. I'm not going to have to make that call on labor because I can't make that call because I have to keep him active. But James and I will have to make that call because we drafted him in our main that we're co-managing together. Versus Tampa Bay at Baltimore. I'm kind of like what Pivetta has shown since joining this Red Sox organization, but that seems like playing with fire. I don't know if I could put him higher than Smiley, so I'm going to say a 2 for me.
Well, the logical thing is if you have him on your roster, you have to use him this week, or else why? I mean,
or drop him.
Right. I mean, this is a 2-start against one of the worst teams in the league, and Tampa's good, but again, one of the things that'll show up in the article today is the ERAs in April are the lowest of any month, and it's because it's cold. Mm-hmm. And I looked early; it's not going to be all that warm next week in Boston. So to me, I mean, I would probably start him in 5 of 5, but he's not an ace, so I'll give him I'll give him a 4, but it's matchup, not pitcher based.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I mean, Baltimore I'd like to pick on, but at Baltimore kind of scares me a little bit. And you're probably right. I mean, we'll probably have to drop him if we decide not to use him. But, we have a couple point difference here. I got a 2, you got a 4 on Pivetta.
Okay.
I'm hoping for the best. That Baltimore lineup is ripe for the picking, but, I like my guy Michael Franco. So and Austin Hayes is kind of,
and I like Hayes, and I like Santander and Mancini. They're going to score some runs, but relative to other lineups, it's just not that good.
Yeah.
Or relative to other lineups.
And you're right about Tampa Bay. Like they scored 1 run yesterday, and looking at that lineup with Tsutsugo leading off, and I know they just went to the World Series, but that lineup on paper is not all that scary. I don't think, but
they're a team that's always the sum of the part. The whole is always greater than the sum of the parts.
That's true.
Although they don't have as many. I know we should stop gabbing because you got somewhere to be at noon or noon my time, but they don't have as many. They don't have as many pieces this year as they've had. Platoon pieces as they had in other years. So they'll get it done.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you enjoyed that opener. Yeah, only 8 games today? I know there's that afternoon game.
Well, it's the cold weather. What if opening day is canceled, and it happened in Boston.
Yep.
So, this is to be expected. I mean, this will be the quietest Friday, knock on wood, of the season.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I especially after the bad taste left in my mouth by the Reds yesterday, I have to wait, which I'm not happy about. But I will be watching games tonight. I look forward to it. Trevor Williams, of course, former Pirate, now with the Chicago Cubs. he is slated to be their fourth starter there with the Cubs, and he gets versus Milwaukee at Pitt. So he's a revenge game, Todd. We got our first revenge game on the 2-start list here. I'm not a big Trevor Williams guy. These matchups are pretty nice, though. I'll probably go a 1. I could see maybe I do this really wacky NL only. It's kind of my hometown league, but I could see picking Trevor Williams up here. Again, NL only, but I guess since I would consider that, I'd have to give him a 1.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the cold weather. It's nice, Wrigley Field. I think this is a 2, and I would consider picking him on FAAB in leagues if he's available, if I really wanted 2 starts. I don't know that it's going to get a whole lot better than this. And again, this is matchup based.
Yeah. And hey, if you buy into the revenge game narrative, maybe so. But I think you're right about the cold weather. That definitely seemed to be a factor in yesterday's game for Luis Castillo. His velocity was down, and I think it was just he was uncomfortable in large part. I mean, I'm gonna be watching his velocity, but same with Jack Flaherty in that same game. It was just cold and gloomy and snowy even in Cincinnati before the game started, and I do think that's going to be a factor this weekend and probably early next week too. For the Reds, Jose De Leon. Yikes. Although, look, he's kind of like a Nando DeFino guy, and I've come around a little bit on De Leon versus Pitt at Arizona. It's not bad. I could see him being a fairly popular guy in 15-teamers in the NFBC this weekend. I'm going to go with 3, although I am a little skeptical given his history. He has some pedigree, though, and results this winter and spring training have been solid. So I'm going to go 3, although I'm a little nervous.
I'm going to go with 2. Because I'm a little more nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, you're following a little closer, so maybe you have a stronger feel.
The home runs do worry me, and one of those is versus Pitt, so at home. But again, just watching him this spring, he has looked a lot better. He is a little prone to the long ball, but I think they're gonna. Well, could be a TJ Antone piggyback game, by the way, early next week. So if you have Antone, I think he's probably a start in a 15-teamer. But yeah, I mean, De Leon's bounced around. Of course, he's been around for a while. He's 28. I think he's a reliever generally, but the matchups I think are probably too good for me to pass up. I'll probably have him as a backup bid in several NFBC leagues this weekend. Yeah. But you got him as a 2. You're not as bullish. But Logan Allen, and definitely be sure you threw this caveat out recently, but definitely do your research and be sure you're bidding on the right Logan Allen if he's out there. 2 Logan Allens in that organization and both lefties, so it could be a little confusing. But Logan Allen gets versus Kansas City, then versus Detroit. I mean, that's like a borderline 5. Now, he's not an ace, so I'm not going to give him a 5, but I think I'm going to give Logan Allen a 4.
Right. He's one of these guys that I tried to draft for a buck in the end game because of this. I didn't get him, but he was on the list to get. Apparently, the reason being he picked up some late season push because he pitched well and appealing to authority, as our colleague Jeff Erickson, I don't want to say coined the term, but wrote about on the site. So I've been stealing that from Jeff for the past couple of weeks. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to go, you're right. It's a 5, but let's not confuse him with being an ace. So it's a 4, as far as this goes.
I know in a lot of the leagues that drafted last weekend and early this week, he was probably drafted, but in those earlier leagues where he might still be out there, I don't mind getting kind of aggressive, maybe a couple $100. Out of 1,000 on Logan Allen in a 15-teamer. Again, he was probably drafted as a streamer in a lot of leagues, but if he's still out there, I'd try to go get Logan Allen. For the Colorado Rockies, Herman Marquez, it was ugly for him in his debut at Coors. At least, not so much in terms of run prevention, but in terms of traffic and just allowing base runners. Now he's got another home matchup before he goes to San Fran. That's a tough call for managers because you want to capitalize on that at San Fran, and if you drafted him, you're probably starting him, but you're kind of holding your breath, I think, for that first start, even though it's against Arizona.
Yeah, you are, but I think you're starting him. Again, if you picked up Marquez, it probably was at a discount, right? Because, in a draft. So I think, again, if you're not using him in this week, you're not using him. So
true. So I got him as a 3. What do you say?
I'll go with 4, but I don't actually, you know what? I have him on a couple rosters this year because he fell
cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, once you got off of him and dropped the price because everybody follows you, the price dropped a bit. So I mean, it was in best balls. I have to be careful because, like I said, I did a lot of. I forgot how much I like best balls, and I know it's not roto, but for draft nicks, they're just a blast. Yeah. It's such a different. I mean, it's more about building a foundation and then covering the positions than it is homers versus steals versus pitching versus saves. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of reading the room, but it's just a different. You're reading a different book, so it's kind of cool. Anyway,
I'm having fun just tracking, my team in the Raz Slam. Just not like looking at stats, but just kind of keeping those players in mind because I thought I built out a really pretty fun bench. I got a lot of my favorites like Josh Rojas, not a great debut for him yesterday. Not debut, but season debut.
Right.
Freddie Peralta was in relief yesterday, by the way, but I do think he's still going to be there. 4th or 5th. We'll get to the Brewers eventually, though. But Carlos Rodon, I thought he was, on the fringes of being out of the majors for good, but certainly I thought his time in the rotation was toast. But finished spring pretty strong. 13 2/3 innings in the spring, 16-1 K-walk. Does that get you on Rodon at all, or has his history just kind of led him to being an afterthought?
When he's pitching, I'm on him, but I'm not counting on it. Right?
You're still on him?
So yes, I mean I'm not so much still, but got on him. Happened to catch one of the games. He looked. Sometimes when you have an injury history, you look like you've had an injury history. He looked free and easy.
Yeah.
He looked fine, not concerned. So it's one of those things. If I wasn't going to pay a premium to get him on my roster, but if I got him in a point where I'm streaming him, and if he gets hurt, I just replace him anyway. Yeah, absolutely. This matchup to me, again, it's probably a 5 because you're using him, but it's, you know what? I'm going to give this one a 5 just because he is a good pitcher. I know he's been walking people, but I'm going to give this one a straight 5.
Okay, yeah, with the matchups, I'm going to go 4, but I got you down as a 5. At Seattle versus KC is fantastic in terms of matchups. It doesn't really get much better than that. I've been burned one too many times with short outings, him leaving the game after giving up 5 runs in the first. So I'm probably off, but maybe I need to get over that. That personal bias I have against him. I'm known to hold a grudge in fantasy, Todd. For the Tigers, I guess it is really Jose Urena. I'm not a fan of this guy, mostly just because I hate his throwing at Acuna BS. But versus Minnesota at Cleveland, not bad, but I just don't think he's very good. So team context is horrible, obviously. So I'm going to go. I honestly don't know any situation where I'd use Jose Urena.
I'm going to be a little more optimistic because it's April, the whole cold weather thing. So I can see picking him up, crossing your fingers, not spending a ton of FAAB, just a couple bucks. But if you're trying to, maybe you've lost some pitching early or something. So I'm going to go with a 2. But I'm not rushing out to get him, but I can see him on a couple of lineups. It's cold in Detroit. It snowed yesterday, right? And at Cleveland. So the matchups aren't great, but they're not terrible.
I'm going to go the 1 just because now that I think about it, I would probably grab him in AL Labor if I could. Okay. I assume he's probably picked up and owned already, or rostered already. But just because I need innings in that league, we got a innings minimum. It was kind of weird how that all after the fact there was a little bit of a tussle. I stayed out of it just because I'm the newish guy. I have no room to say what I think about it. But we are sticking with it. I think some teams may have trouble getting to that 950 innings minimum. So, yeah, a guy like Urania could at least give you some innings if you got to push up to that in an only league. No starters for Houston because they got 2 off days next week. KC does as well have 2 off days, but given the way things move for them, we were projecting Danny Duffy to take the hill twice. So at Cleveland, at the White Sox, tentative, very tentative, but I mean, Duffy's kind of a rubber arm vet anyway, so I wouldn't think they'd have to push him back. I'm not a big fan of Duffy. 2 road matchups, pretty tough. I'm going to probably say 0.
I wanted to say 1, but I'm going to say 0 too. I can't. I'd rather pick up the Williams. I'd rather pick up Urania. So that kind of puts him at a 0.
You have Duffy in labor, right? He was a reserve pick. AL labor.
Yes, and I'm going to have to make a decision. I'm actually when I do these lists, I am honest. I think mixed. I'm going to have that spot in labor where I can put him in and take him out.
Yeah,
this is a this could be a chance where I have to put him in. Especially I think I lost Trevor Rosenthal. So not only do I have the Framber Valdez spot, you know what? As far as Rosenthal goes, he wasn't hurt, but he hadn't shown health over enough years that you can't at least have been concerned about it. I maybe
and
didn't
he was
show
hurt
enough.
In the spring.
Right. I maybe didn't show enough concern. To me, it was always another year from TJ, so he's over that. But so I may have been guilty. Well, no, I was guilty of being a little overly optimistic. Not just have to hope that he comes back and still does his thing. I mean, on the other hand, 2 years ago in my first year back in labor, I picked up Blake Trinan as the best, as the top closer. And so my history with Oakland closers in labor 2 of the past 3 years hasn't been good.
Yeah, that hurts, man. I feel for you. I have Rosenthal in a few leagues. Do you assume it's Diekman, or do you think maybe Romo, Wendelken?
Isn't Wendelken hurt, or is he better?
I think he's on the roster.
Okay, I think he was hurt in the spring.
I think he was away for a personal issue, but yeah.
Oh, that's what it was exactly. Yeah. I'm sorry, you're right.
No, you're good.
I guess it'll be Diekman. But
I kind of lean Romo just because given his experience, but who knows?
Oh, that makes sense too. So
just not. I mean, we talked about a few closer situations at the top of the show. We didn't mention that one, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. I probably won't be bidding heavily on either, but you never know. After if Pagan doesn't get a save the rest of the weekend, if it's more Melanson, maybe I'll have to dip into that. Now for the Angels, no 2-starters because they got an off day. Plus they're going 6-man. I'm excited. Well, a little nervous, frankly, to see what Ohtani does on the mound in his first start because his last spring start was absolutely brutal. He had that blister, and if he has another bad game, I might be nervous about starting him in a pitcher spot. Ohtani, especially at Toronto next week.
Yeah, I don't know. The default,
which is Dunedin, of course.
Yes, exactly. I have a hard time not. Do we have Ohtani for 2 here?
No, I just mentioned Ohtani because.
In general, you're right. Okay.
Yeah. No 2 starters for the Angels.
Yeah, I just got new glasses, and it says, "You like them, folks?"
Yeah.
It says Quintana. Like it looks similar, but it says Ohtani. Yeah, in general, man, would I start Ohtani next week? Give him one make good start. I think it would depend on my roster, and if I was comfortable with my other 9 pitchers, maybe I would sit Ohtani. But then, it's just now that what if game that where, what if he throws, 7 innings of 1-hit ball, which I don't think he will. But I would probably start him unless it was just so obvious that I had 9 better pitchers.
Yeah, I think it will depend for me on what he does in his first start this weekend, just because. Again, that last one was so ugly. James and I drafted him kind of as our SP3 in our main, but I'm a little nervous. And we actually had to plug him into the UT this weekend, just given injuries elsewhere. But I'm hoping that we can use him on the pitching side more often than not, more often than in the UT spot. For the Dodgers, Dustin May got the number 5 role over David Price, over Tony Gonsolin. I was on Gonsolin, but May's stuff is really good. The K's haven't really been there. It hasn't translated the stuff to K's yet. But at Oakland versus Washington, obviously if you drafted him, you're ecstatic about plugging him in here. And I'd probably say Dustin May's a 5. It's probably the best one we've talked about.
I'm with you, and I'm also with you on I do think eventually he'll figure out how to translate the stuff into more K's, be it switching the pitch mix, not just the mix, but just not distribution, but the timing when he throws what. I think he'll figure it out. Stuff's too good not to generate more swing and miss.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time. I'm with you because you'll miss bats when you got that good of stuff. Now, we will continue on, but real quick, baseball has always been America's pastime, but a close second is horse racing. You've got the best way to get in on the action. Stable Duel brings a new way to play the races against your friends. Similar to what we know in fantasy football and baseball, you select your team or your stable of horses and compete against other stables for big money prizes. Watch your stable move up the leaderboard as your horses accumulate points based on where they finish the race. The app is free to download, and they offer free games so you can learn how to play at zero risk. Don't know anything about horse racing? Don't worry. The app has all you need to know, from free data on each horse's record, as well as a risk number, a speed number, and a value number for your best selections. This is the first game of its kind in horse racing, and you don't want to miss out. Download the Stable Duel app now and get in the game. Play, race, win with Stable Duel. So we'll continue on here with our 2-start pitchers. I'm excited to plug in Trevor Rogers. What a great spring he had, and it seemed like every day last week he was going 4 rounds higher than he was the day before. But good reason. I mean, he's looked great. So they actually, especially with the injury to Sixto Sanchez, looks like the Miami Marlins will have two two-start pitchers next week, Trevor Rogers and Sandy Alcantara. Alcantara's a 5, and I think Trevor Rogers versus St. Louis at the Mets, I can't quite give him a 5, but I'm going to say a 4.
Yes and yes.
Nice. Did you get Rogers anywhere?
Yes and yes. I'm sorry, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I did.
I
get a few. I don't remember, it was Craig. You mentioned Craig Mish before, but I was kind of on him, and I'm also on Edward Cabrera. Nice. I know he's hurt now, and we just don't know.
Yeah.
But he's kind of on another team. He's hurt, but we'd be talking about him as a 2-start pitcher this week. But the biceps, we're not exactly sure who's going to pitch again, but it's kind of a forgotten man on that staff.
True. I want to mention another name that we haven't really talked about, and actually, RotoWire President Pete Shanky messaged me and said, "Hey, we need an outlook for this guy. You need to write one." Nick Neidert on this Miami Marlins team. Nick Neidert had a great spring, and I did write an outlook for him. He made his debut last year just working in mop-up duty. A little increased velo this spring. He was touching 94. Pitched really well in the Grapefruit League. And again, with Sixto, I'm a little worried about Sixto's shoulder. They're kind of backing off him. And I saw Craig Mish tweet that when they eventually need a 5th starter, if Sixto's not quite ready, it probably will be Nick Neidert, Neidert. So just keep that name in mind for maybe just get out ahead of the pack if you're in one of those deep leagues and you're looking for an arm.
No relation to Jim?
Jim the Anvil. Oh, I asked you this a while ago, but you did not play the original WrestleFest video game, did you, Todd?
No, I did not.
The official sequel just came out, and it's a lot of fun. I was a WrestleFest freak. It's like God tier video game for me, so I'm enjoying the official sequel. Now, for the Brewers, Brett Anderson, that's a hard pass for me. Even, at Chicago, at St. Louis, I just can't do Brett Anderson, especially at this stage. The K's. Pretty much he has to have everything go well, pretty much everything go perfectly in his outing to make up for the lack of Ks, and that rarely happens.
Well, that's why you have two. That's why he's at least to me he's a 1. He's in the picture. He's one of those guys that pitches okay in between injuries. Mm-hmm. So if you're aggressive, he's in the pick. I don't pick him up, but if I happen to have him on a draft champions, which is the only place I would have him, I would consider starting him. But again, I am a little more aggressive, especially in April, when it comes to this sort of thing.
I got to turn on the SiriusXM Comrex here. Hold on. I got the show coming up, and they always are on me to turn this thing on. Okay, I got Anderson's here. You got him 1. Matt Shoemaker on the Minnesota Twins at Detroit versus Seattle. That's pretty great. Now, his injury history, you got to factor in the possibility he leaves one of these early. Maybe he leaves the first one early and doesn't make that second start. But matchups-wise, I'd probably say Brett Shoemaker's a 4.
I'm going to go 3, but yeah, whatever. We're picking nits at this point. But you're right. It's the injury history. Who was it? Someone we had like De Leon. I'm sorry, like Rodon, or someone that already like Drew. He's like Drew Smiley in that.
Yes.
You pitch him when he's healthy.
I thought I was so smart getting Randy Dobnak in the Tout Wars head-to-head and plugging him in, and then I had to take a big negative because he gave up the game-winning run. So I guess he didn't give up. He wasn't actually charged with the run, but he got charged with the loss. So I had to take a -5 on that. Oops. Now for the Mets, David Peterson at Philadelphia versus Miami. Not bad. Are you buying in on what we saw last season from David Peterson?
I'm not buying in on what we saw. There was a lot of luck involved. Well, I'm not buying in that he was that good. I'm buying the fact that he's young and can get better.
Yeah.
And the best way to fend off regression is to improve your skills, and he's a candidate to do that.
Yeah, young guy, and I mean, I think it's pretty clear that he was pitching above his head, but there may be another level coming under the hood. Jordan Montgomery was a guy I did not end up with.
Do we need to put a note? Do we put a number?
Oh yeah, I gave him a 2. What did you give him?
I'm gonna give him a 3.
Okay, thanks for reminding me. Okay, so Jordan Montgomery was a guy I didn't end up with, but some smart people really seemed on Jordan Montgomery versus Baltimore at Tampa Bay. Pretty nice. Although Yankee Stadium, isn't always great. But.
Well, it's not. It's one of those tricky ones. It's okay for runs, but it gives up homers.
Yeah, that's right. You are my guy when it comes to things like that. Little nuances when it comes to park factors. What am I missing with Jordan Montgomery? I know he's coming back from TJ and looked like he was kind of fully back at the end of last season, but I don't see what everybody else sees, I guess.
I think this is more of a based on reputation, pedigree, and scouting, in that injuries curtailed his development. And when we look and we see some of these uglier numbers, we'd be looking at better numbers had he not gotten hurt. Mm-hmm. The first year, 144 Ks, 155 innings as a 24-year-old rookie, not bad. We expected to get better, but I think he lost some of the development with the injuries. And right now, I know this is Jason Collette, to give him the credit, where it's not, well, a lot of people, but Jason on the site likes to get the guys second year off the TJ, and that's where Montgomery is now. He flew up rankings towards the end a little higher than I was willing to go. Right? He got some big time lift towards the end, so he was lift. I would rather have waited for my James Paxton and Sean Manaea than pay what people were paying for Jordan Montgomery.
I got him as a 3 next week. What say you?
I'm gonna agree. Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, for this Oakland staff, it'll be Cole Irvin getting the number 5 role, not Dalton Jeffries, not AJ Puck. I know Dalton Jeffries was catching some helium, and I was we drafted him with the reserve pick, but we'll probably be dropping him. Frankie Montes gets a couple of tough matchups though versus the Dodgers at Houston. And he's kind of in that Jordan Montgomery bucket. I don't feel great about him.
Assuming he can pitch, right? There's a little bit of an asterisk.
Yeah, that's right. On track.
I'm gonna figure. You know what? I'm gonna. If this were, July and everything's cruising, it could be a 4. But I think with these matchups, both of them, and he can't be going deep into the ball games. I'm gonna say just a 2, and that might even be a stretch.
Yeah, he suffered a ripped cuticle. So a hangnail, ripped fingernail.
Yeah.
But he threw great in a simulated game. But that is just another thing on top of it, so to keep in mind. Matt Moore, I feel like I got saved in a few leagues because I was considering Matt Moore as a bench streamer, but I didn't end up with him. Versus the Mets at Atlanta. that has disaster written all over it. Props to anyone who plugs him in and actually gets something out of him if he does well and you capitalize on it. But if you beat me with Matt Moore, tip of the cap, I will not be going that route. I'm going to give him a 1, though, just because and only I could see.
All right, I will agree. In the interest of time, I will agree. I agree with everything as far as that goes. I love that, him and Cobb and Smiley, to me, they're all in the same boat. I expected big things. 0 for 3.
Yeah, we're pushing long here. I got to wrap this up because I don't know. There's just more 2-star pitchers than I realized. I didn't budget my time well.
Could we slip over and just talk 2 pitchers and let James sit down on XXM? Just double cast it, whatever the word is.
Yeah, maybe we will. He might just enter the room at some point too. Now, last week when James and I were doing the XM show, we had Shelly Verstrate on the show. I'm sorry. Of course, Shelly does great work. And she was talking about JT Brubaker and how she ended up with him at Cincinnati versus the Cubs. I mean, maybe a 2. No track record to hang your hat on, though.
I'm going to go 3 because I trust Shelly. No, she's not the only one. And this is completely, what I'm listening to other people on this. I had Brubaker last year in Tout Wars. I think I mentioned this because he was potential closer. That's how desperate Pittsburgh was and how desperate I was. But I'm gonna go with 3 just based on the matchups.
Very nice. Adrian Morejón, I've seen picked up in a few leagues.
A lot.
Versus San Francisco at Texas, especially with the way Texas, that new park, is playing. This is juicy. I'm going to probably go 4.
I agree. If he's available, a lot of leagues that have pre-season FAABs, pre the day of this, opening day FAAB, he was a hot commodity. If he still happens to be available, I think you need to look at him.
Anthony DeSclafani, by the way, we're skipping over Seattle because they have a 6-man and a day off, so no 2 starters. Disco at San Diego versus Colorado. At San Diego is scary, but I'll probably say Disco's a 2.
Yeah, don't you have to retrain your mind to remember that San Diego's scary?
Yeah.
It's almost Pavlovian. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, at San Diego, I'm like, oh, but then I have to go,
yeah, there you go. I'm going to go with 2 as well. Although I kind of like him a little more than some of these other guys we've been haggling over or waffling around. But his velocity. Actually, no, I need to check to see his velocity over the spring, but it has been ticking up. If it continues to tick up, I like it.
And Daniel Ponce de Leon, we talked about briefly. I do like this one. The matchups are, again, at Miami versus Milwaukee. We say a 3?
I'm going to go 4.
Okay. I'm going to go 3, but Todd 4. I got you down.
Yeah.
Now, Michael Walke's kind of doing a tandem thing, isn't he? So I don't even know if we should really grade him. What would you say? Do you think he actually factors into decisions? Like,
if he's opening, no. But if I don't know if Tampa will play the matchups. Has it announced who he's tandeming with?
No, maybe it was Hill. I thought it was Hill and Archer kind of tandeming, but then I don't know who it would be with Walke. But I just don't see him going deep at all. I don't know.
No, agreed. So yeah, and we presently have him down as starting, but plus the matchups are kind of tough.
Yeah.
So that's we can rely on the matchups and give us a week to see how they're using their pitchers. And we'll have a bit more information next week. So he's a 0 based on at Boston and versus New York.
Yeah, I'm just not even going to type him on the list just because, again, I don't know if you should view him as a traditional starter this week. Probably best to not and assume kind of a bullpen game there. What about Fulte? Mike Fultonevich versus Toronto versus San Diego. I'm skeptical, but I'll probably give him a 1, a courtesy 1, I guess you could call it.
I was going to give him a courtesy 2. He did look pretty good this spring. And again, Toronto and San Diego, you can no longer gloss over those teams.
Yeah.
They're, a couple of years ago, like, that's a 4.
So the final 3 on the list, Tanner Roark, Steven Matz for Toronto. They're at Texas versus the Angels. I can't do it. I think these are both 0s, honestly.
Yeah, I'm aggressive, but this may be my board. This is my line. It's the Tanner Roark, Steven Matz line is the over-under, and I'm going under.
What about Patrick Corbin then as we wrap things up versus Atlanta at the Dodgers. I think if you drafted Corbin, you kind of have to, but
yeah,
that's pretty scary.
Yeah. And I was actually drafting Corbin more this year just because the price had dropped to a point where I was comfortable. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you're only going to get 4 or 5 2-start pitchers over the course of a season even of your stars,
2-start weeks,
this is to me this is one of them.
All right,
at LA though, oh man,
I'm
gonna go a 3 just because early in the season you don't have injuries yet. There's a possibility maybe if you want to play an extra closer, I can see where you have options this week. I'm going to say a 3.
Very nice. Well, to recap, the first of 24 weeks of 2-start pitchers?
26
weeks. Wow. Okay, so we'll recap here. Good luck in the first full week, guys. Luke Weaver, 0. Drew Smiley, 2. Jorge Lopez, 0. Nick Pivetta, I got a 2. Todd, 4, though. So probably the biggest difference on the board this week between us. Trevor Williams, I got a 1. Todd, 2. Jose De Leon, I got a 3. Todd, 2. I'll probably bump that down to a 2 if I could have it back. Logan Allen, 4. Herman Marquez, I say 3. Todd, 4. Carlos Rodon, I say 4. Todd, 5. Jose Urania, I say 1. Todd, 2. Danny Duffy, 0. Dustin May, 5. Trevor Rogers, 4. Sandy Alcantara, 5. Brett Anderson, I got a 0. Todd, 1. Matt Shoemaker, I say 4. Todd, 3. David Peterson, 2. Todd, 3. Jordan Montgomery, 3. Frankie Montes, 3. Matt Moore, 1. JT Brubaker, I got a 2. Todd, 3. Adrian Morejón, 4. Anthony DeSclafani, 2. Daniel Ponce de Leon, I got 3. Todd, 4. Mike Fultonevich, I got a 1. Todd with a courtesy 2. Tanner Roark, 0. Steven Matz, 0. Patrick Corbin, 3. Well, that'll do it. Anything else you want to mention, Todd?
No. I'm looking forward to talking to you in a couple hours. This point, a little over an hour. You and James on the show, and we're back tomorrow on MLB Network Radio, right?
Absolutely. 5 to 6 if you want more of Todd and myself. Again, good luck, and we'll be back. Talk to you soon on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.